Hi everyone, welcome to part 4, and finally in this video we are going to be wrapping up our first chapter. So yeah, let's get started. So in the previous video we already discussed that we have five main kingdoms, and we went over the basic features, what they share and what's unique to them. And in this video we are going to be going ahead further into two kingdoms in much more detail. The first one is the animal kingdom, and the second one is the plant kingdom. So let's get started. Acha. So for animal kingdom, you guys need to know. Okay, we have again, animal kingdom is vast. It's huge. So we have further, for our ease to classify animals, we have further divided this huge animal kingdom into two groups, you can say. So the first one is vertebrates and the other one is invertebrates. So invertebrates are those animals that do not have a backbone, without a backbone. And then vertebrates, just like us, we have a backbone, so we are a part of the vertebrate group of animals. So these are all the animals that have a backbone. Okay, so first of all we're gonna go, and now what we did further is then we also have classified these vertebrates into five more classes. All right, so we have mammals, we have birds, we have reptiles, we have amphibians. So we have further classified vertebrates into these five classes, and so have we uh, classified these invertebrates into two main classes as well. We're gonna go over it, but first let's get started with vertebrates. Okay, so far animals, they have been divided into two groups, vertebrates and invertebrates, and now we're gonna go over what are vertebrates. So here we have classified, as I already told you, we have classified vertebrates into five main classes. What we have to go, just like in the previous lecture, it was a memory based. Unfortunately, this one is also a memory based. You guys have to remember the key features of each of the class of these vertebrates, because that's important and that's what they usually ask in the exam, and you also need to remember, okay, what's features that they all share and then what's different to each of them. Okay, so let's get started. The first one, let's focus on mammals. So what are mammals? Mammals are basically those organisms in the vertebrate group of the animals that have hair on their body, or they have fur. Just like us, we have hair on our body, but if we say, let's say we take cats or dogs or rabbits, these are all mammals, and so they have fur on their hair. All right, and they also give birth to their offsprings, right? So if they give birth to their offsprings, so they have memory glands. So memory glands basically produce milk so that they can feed their young ones. And they're also warm-blooded. Important point. We are all warm-blooded. We have lungs for breathing, and then our fertilization. Now, what is fertilization? This is another this process of fertilization is actually, it's going to be explained in the chapter of reproduction, but for now just know that fertilization is a process by which basically a sperm. Now, what's a sperm? Sperm is basically, it's um it so just a basic idea. If a sperm from the male and the egg from the female, they meet together, they fuse together with one another, then they form a cell which is known as a zygote, and then this zygote further develops into a baby. So that's like the whole point. So basically what I'm trying to say over here is that fertilization is basically the process by which these two cells, okay, these two cells, a sperm and an egg, meet together, then they form something known as a zygote, and then that zygote, when it develops, it develops into a baby basically. So this fertilization, for the process of reproduction to take place, fertilization is a very key important part. So this fertilization is usually internal, right? Internal, okay? And then we also have external ears present, which are known as pinna. And we have a placenta. Again, placenta is a structure that's present inside the uterus when a baby is developing. But again, all of these things are going to be explained in detail, in depth in the reproduction chapter again. So just know these for now. Okay. Now going over the birds class. So birds can their very basic feature. Okay, I don't think so. You guys even need to remember that they have feathers, they have wings, they have beak. They do not have any teeth, okay? So that's the reason why they have beaks. And again, they also have lungs. And only birds and mammals are the only classes in the vertebrates that are warm-blooded. Baki, all of the other three classes that we're going to study right now, they're all cold-blooded. So I think this also makes it very easy to remember. You know, it's an I think it's a trick to help you guys remember it out easily. So just remember that birds and mammals are the only ones that are warm-blooded, and again they lay hard-shelled eggs, which means that they do not give birth to the young ones. Okay, they lay eggs, and their fertilization is also internal, and they have two legs. Two. I think these are all things that you guys already know. Okay, so you guys, I don't think so I need to go over it, but I'm still going over them, even though they're very basic. So instead of having four limbs means instead of having hands and feet, they have two legs, but they have two wings instead of our two arms. All right. Now going over reptiles. So basic examples of reptiles. What are reptiles? Like snakes and all of snakes and lizards. They all come into the category of reptiles. And reptiles are organisms that they live mainly on land. They have very dry, very scaly skin. And again, just like um, just like birds and mammals also have lungs. And as I told you guys before, that they're cold-blooded. All right. But here, they also lay eggs, just like birds, but they lay leathery eggs. Not hard-shelled eggs, but leathery eggs, and their fertilization is also internal. So, we have seen so far that mammals, birds, and reptiles, all of their fertilization is actually internal. All right. Now, so this is a feature that all of these organisms they share. Okay, this is something that all of them are sharing. And also lungs. Lungs is also a feature that they're all sharing over here. So these are the two features that they are sharing. Now moving ahead towards amphibians. So amphibians is something that comes in between reptiles and in between terrestrial and in so amphibians is something that is coming in between organisms that live on land and on water. So what lives inside water? Fish, right? The last one that we're gonna cover is fish. Fish, they confirm they all live in water. But reptiles, they all live on land. They do not live in water. But amphibians are something that live both on land and in water. Now, when do they live in land? When they're adults. But when they're uh when they are young, all right? When they're young, when they're babies, amphibians, and the classic example of amphibians are frogs. So frogs, when they're just born, they live in water, and when they become adult frogs, they actually start living on land. And that's the reason why they have moist skin and they have no scales. So they have gills. As I told you, when they're young, they live in water. And so if they live in water, anything that lives in water, it has gills, like fish. And when they become adult, those gills actually develop into lungs. And they're also cold-blooded. They also lay eggs in water without any shells. Important point. In birds, we saw that they have right here. We saw that they have hard-shelled eggs. In reptiles, we saw that they lay eggs on land, which are leathery. All right. But here they also lay eggs, but then these eggs are without shells, so there are no shells present on it, and their fertilization is also external, which means that their sperms and eggs actually meet inside water. All right. Now moving ahead towards fish. Again, they live in water. They have fins for movement, and they're also cold-blooded, and they have gills for breathing. And again, we have scales on the body, and they also lay eggs in water without us. So this is the feature that both amphibians and both fish are sharing, that they lay eggs in water without any shells, and their fertilization is also usually external. All right. So these are the features that both, I think this is very basic stuff that you guys already know, but just going over it for your memory so that you guys don't forget anything. So I've still labeled each one of the features over here for your ease. Now, we're done with the vertebrates part, and now we're gonna go over the invertebrate groups. So we have further divided the invertebrates into two groups, which are the invertebrates that are having legs and the invertebrates that do not have any legs. So the invertebrates that have legs, but then we have also said that they need to have jointed legs, all right? Not separated legs, jointed legs. And then these organisms, the invertebrate organisms having jointed legs, we call them the arthropod phylum, right? So invertebrate is the group. It is further divided into two classes. One, if they have legs or no legs. At our level, we do not go into the class having no legs. So this is out of our discussion. We do not, it's not in our syllabus. All right, so this part is not in our syllabus. What we're going to focus on are jointed legs, and jointed legs may be the arthropod. We call the invertebrates having jointed legs as the arthropod phylum. And the arthropod, so we have how many classification of arthropods? So arthropods are we have further divided the arthropods into four groups. The myriapods, the insects, the arachnids, all of these are arthropods. But just like we classified the vertebrates, we have also classified the arthropods into four distinct groups. The first one that we're going to go over are the myriapods. Now, what are myriapods? I'm going to actually draw something. So, myriapods is basically like again, it doesn't have a backbone, so that's why they're invertebrates. They have the jointed legs, and their body's actually divided into so many segments, almost 100, and that's the reason why we have centipede and we have millipede. These are the examples of myriapods. So that's how a typical centipede looks like, where their body is actually divided into many segments, and each of these segments actually consists of at least a pair of jointed legs. All right. So there are a lot of jointed legs like this. Sorry for my bad drawing, by the way. And then they have a pair of antennae. So this is how a usual myriapod is going to look like. I hope you guys understand it so far. Take it. Nothing very hard. Just know that their body is divided into many segments. And also know the examples over here, that they're made up of centipedes and millipedes, and that each segment consists of at least a pair, which means that they can have up to 100 pairs of jointed legs, and they all have one pair of antenna. All right, now moving on to the second part, the second group, which are known as the insects. A classic example of insects that I would like to give you guys for me to explain it better to you guys is actually a butterfly. All right, so if I draw a typical butterfly, I'm going to divide its body into three parts. All right, the first one is the head. This one that I'm doing is the thorax, and then this one right here is the abdomen. And then we have a pair of antenna. All right, let me change the color. And then we have two pairs of wings. So this is the first pair. And then I'm gonna switch the color. Maybe let's go to this one. All right. So here. So we have two pairs of wings. We have a pair of antenna, and they have three pairs of jointed legs. So this is the first pair, second, and a third. So how are you going to remember it? You're going to remember it that, okay, if it has three parts, just remember it by this diagram, okay? How are you going to remember it? That their body is divided into three parts: head, thorax, and abdomen. All right. So if their body is divided into three parts, then they also have three pairs of jointed legs, which means that they have a total of six legs. All right. And they have two pairs of wings, a pair of antenna. I think this is a basic diagram that we all have drawn in our early years of school and all. So I think this diagram is very cute, and you guys can easily remember all um the features of insects. And again, they have a pair of antenna. What's new over here is they have eyes, but then these eyes are known as compound eyes. All right. So they have eyes, cute little eyes, but then these eyes are known as compound eyes. I think it's very simple and easy to remember it right now. So, yeah. And now moving ahead towards arachnids. What are arachnids? The basic class examples of arachnids are spiders and scorpions. These are all the things, these type of things, they all come into the category of arachnids. And we say that arachnids, their bodies are divided into two parts. The first part is known as cephalothorax, and the second one is abdomen. Just like here in insects, we said that they have a thorax, the middle part. Here we do not have a head. Instead, we have two main parts. We have the cephalothorax and we have the abdomen. And then again, we know that they have eight legs. So that means that they have about four pairs of jointed legs. They have no antenna, no wings. That's it. Very simple and easy to remember. All right. Just remember they have two main body parts: cephalothorax and abdomen, eight legs, no antenna, no wings, and the basic examples we all know: spiders and scorpions. Perfect. Now moving ahead towards crustaceans. I think the word crustaceans describe it. The examples that come inside it, it's mostly crabs and prawns. So these are all that things that come inside the category of crustaceans. And the first part that I want to discuss over here is that their body is covered by a hard exoskeleton. We all have seen crabs, and we see this orange color hard shell on it. This is actually made up of calcium, and that's the reason why it's very strong. So again, they usually live in water, and a key thing to note over here is that they have two pairs of antenna. Okay, we only saw in insects and in myriapods that myriapods also have a pair of antenna. Insects, they also have a pair of antenna, and arachnids, they do not have any antenna, and crustaceans also have a pair of antenna, but it has two pairs of antenna. Okay, so remember that insects and myriapods are both sharing a pair of antenna, whereas there is no antenna present in the arachnids category, and then in crustaceans we have two pairs of antenna, and it has more than eight legs. All right, more than eight legs. And because they live in water, so obviously they will have gills for breathing. Okay, so that's it. We are done with the animal kingdom. Now moving ahead towards the plant kingdom. So we have also divided the plant kingdom because again, plant kingdom is also extremely huge. So scientists have also divided the plant kingdom into two main distinct parts. The first one are ferns and the other ones are flowering plants. You can also call this as flowering and non-flowering because ferns, they do not have any flowers, whereas flowering plants, as the name suggests, they have flowers. So first let's go over ferns. So this is how a fern looks like. So as you can see, it's a leaflet with many leaves. So if this is a leaf, then it has a lot of leaflets coming out of it like this. And the dis the the feature that these ferns have is that they do not have any flowers. And we say that flowers are actually the reproductive part of a plant. So how will then ferns reproduce because they do not have flowers? Well, ferns have something known as spores present on them. And spores actually develop. So if this is a fern, then on the underside we have circular type of stuff, and we call these as spores, all right? And then these spores actually develop into seeds, and then new plants develop, all right? So they have no flowers, they do not have any seeds, rather they develop by spores. And they also, of course, they need water for reproduction. All plants need water, and they have proper roots, stems, and leaves. And we call their leaves called as fronds. Fronds. They're known as fronds, all right? And this one right here. So I hope ferns are clear to you all. Now let's go ahead towards flowering plants. So flowering plants, again, we have a lot of flowers. So scientists decided that we also need to classify them. And we classify flowering plants as monocotyledons and dicotyledons. Now, what do these words mean? So, if you see a seed of a plant, inside a seed, we have something known as a cotyledon. All right. This cotyledon, if there's one cotyledon present inside the seed, we call it as the monocotyledon. And if there are two cotyledons present, then we call it as a dicotyledon. We call that flowering plant as a dicotyledon. And as I already said, if anything has flowers, then they're the reproductive part of the plant. And flowering plants, they reproduce sexually, and their offsprings are actually seeds. All right. So yeah. Now in here you just need to know how a monocotyledon plant actually looks like. So if I just zoom over here, this is how a monocotyledon flowering plant is going to look like. What tells me that this is a monocotyledon? The first thing to note over here is that their flower, the petals on the flower, they're actually going to be present in the multiples of 3. So they can either be 3, or they can either be 6, or they can either be 9 or 12. So they're in the multiples of 3. And the second thing that tells me that a plant is a monocotyledon and not dicotyledon is that their leaves are actually, if you notice this leaf over here, they have parallel veins. So this is the midrib of the leaf, and then they're also very parallel, and they have narrow leaves. So they have parallel veins running inside the leaf, and the leaves are also very narrow. And the third distinct thing that tells me right away that this plant is a monocotyledon is that they have fibrous roots. Fibrous roots means like a network spread, very small network of roots. So these are the 3 things that will instantly tell me that this flowering plant is actually it belongs to the monocotyledon category and not a di one. So examples: maize and grass. Yes, grass is an example of monocotyledon. Moving ahead towards dicotyledons, 2 cotyledons present inside their seed. So 2 cotyledons, and again, what makes me think. So again, we have to just look into the 3 features that makes a flowering plant a dicotyledon. Their flower petals are going to be present in the multiples of 4 or 5, not in 3. Okay, if it's 3, then it is a monocotyledon. But if the flower petals are present in the multiples of 4 and 5, then it is definitely a dicotyledon. And also look at these leaves. Their leaves are going to be broad, and they're going to have a network. They're going to be having a network of veins inside the leaves. And they also have tapped roots. So this is the third key feature that tells me that this plant is actually a monocotyledon. Sorry, a dicotyledon. All right. So flower petals in the multiples of 3, in the multiples of 4 and 5, sorry, and tap roots and floral, the petals, they are actually, they have a net-like leaf structure, leaf veins present inside them. And their examples are beans and sunflower. All right. So we are done with the animal, we're done with the plant kingdom. Now, in all of this chapter, we missed out on one thing. We talked about bacteria, we talked about fungi, animals, plants, protoctist, but we didn't talk about viruses. Why didn't we place viruses in any of the 5 kingdoms? Because viruses they're actually considered as non-living. Why? Because they do not carry out these 7 characteristics: movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition. All of these things, they actually do not carry out these things. And that's the reason why scientists have not placed viruses in any of the 5 kingdoms. And but then why do we see viruses? If they're not living, they shouldn't be present, right? Because viruses, a very unique thing about viruses is they actually reproduce. They only reproduce. That's the only thing that they carry out. They do not carry out any other function except for reproduction, is that they reproduce inside other living cells, inside host cells, right? So if they actually start feeding on their nutrition. So they start reproducing um, very rapidly inside host cells and not on their own. So they cannot survive on their own. Instead, they have to be inside a host cell for them to reproduce. And so that's it. Now, moving towards the structure of a virus, you need to know about the structure of a virus, that they will either, so for their DNA part, they will either have a DNA or an RNA, and that's also not enclosed in a nucleus. So it's a free living. Uh, right here, as you can see, they will either have DNA or they will either have RNA. So either one of them. Okay, they can have not both at the same time, either RNA or either DNA or RNA. And they have something called as a protein coat. So surrounding this DNA and RNA, they have something known as this yellow color that you guys see. This stuff over here, these yellow color granules that you see, this is actually a protein coat. So that's all that's present in their structure. They have a DNA and RNA, they have a protein coat, and they can also have something known as an envelope around them as well. The final last structure that you guys see, this yellow ring. So that's it. That's a very basic structure of virus that you guys need to know. And that's it. That's mostly all that you guys need to know. Oh, and also know that this protein code can also be named as capsid. So if they call it capsid, remember that it is the protein code. These yellow color things that you guys see. Wait, let me. Wait a second. These ones, okay? You can also call this layer as capsid. All right. I hope it is clear. And yeah, that's it.